The NASCAR Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is presented by WynnBET. WynnBET is now live in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Louisiana, Massachusetts, Michigan, New York, New Jersey, Tennessee, and Virginia. From boosted same-game parlays to live in-game odds, WynnBET has what you need to win. Bet $100 and get $100 at WynnBET.com or download the WynnBET app and start winning today. State restrictions apply. We're also brought to you by the Sports Gambling Podcast Final Four Watch Party. It's April 1st at 7:30 p.m. That is probably Pacific time. It didn't say, but I'm sure because we are on the West Coast. SGP is going to be at the Ice House in Los Angeles. So come hang out with the crew. All the info right now at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/icehouse.
Driver, start your engine!
Strap in and pull those belts up tight as the Sports Gambling Podcast Network presents the NASCAR Gambling Podcast.
I'll wreck my mom to win a championship. I'll wreck your mom to win a championship.
With all the news and the best bets for your NASCAR weekend.
It refrains me from not beating the out of you right now because you ask me stupid questions. But since I'm on probation, I suppose that's improper to say as well. If you could talk about racing things, we could talk about racing things.
Now, here are your hosts, Rod Villagomez and Cody Zeeb.
Because let's face it, you come here for the racing things and all the talk that goes around it. This is the NASCAR Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Corey LaJoie already making an appearance on
the lucky picture, Rod. The lucky picture.
Lucky hat.
Corey LaJoie and the lucky hat. Had to bring it back. Woo, man.
What a day. What a day.
What a day. What a day, Rod.
Welcome everybody in to the live show. Of course, if you're listening to this tomorrow on the podcast, still welcome in. We love that you download. We love that you listen. We have a lot to cover today. All three series were in action this weekend. Started out kind of rough, but when you hit a 22-1 to end the day, all of those bets are forgiven. So again, it was an Atlanta weekend, and we are live on YouTube, on Twitter, and basically just in your homes right now. Welcome you in to this show. Cody, buddy, first off, I know you hit the 22-1. I know you're stoked about that, but overall, take out the 22-1. How was the weekend of racing in Atlanta? This is, of course, the second year that we've seen this configuration. So we didn't really know what we were getting into it, whether or not it was going to be the same as last season. But I think all in all, some of the racing was good, but I could have done without, I think, 2/3 of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I am a huge fan of the super speedway style of racing. Like, it's one of my favorites because there's constantly action. Like, go back to last week and at Phoenix, there were points where it was Kyle Larson just leading for a long time. It was William Byron just leading for a long time. Wasn't a ton going on. Yeah, they got stretched out a little today, but if you look at the difference in the lower series, and Brad Keselowski kind of pointed it out, right, in his post-race interview where he talked about, the professionals know how to do it without wrecking or something to that effect. But I mean, they got strung out, and that's going to be just how it is with these guys, and they know what they're doing and they're good at it. But there was still plenty of action throughout the day. It's not as easy to pass here as it is with Daytona and Talladega. That third line almost never forms. And so we'll have to see. I think that the drivers have talked about this a lot as it continues to go forward and this track starts to wear out again. It might be a different type of, where we get the worn intermediate surface with the drafting element, could make it even crazier than it already was. But we had the chaos. We had the elements of that. I mean, guys like Ryan Blaney were 3 laps down at one point, end up finishing up there in the top 10. I mean, has a chance to win it at the end. So I felt like it was really good racing. The truck and Xfinity races were a little messy and sloppy, but we kind of expected that. Obviously, betting-wise, things didn't go great in the Truck Series race. I'm honestly not even sure we hit anything, but made it up in Xfinity. You almost swept your entire card, so props to you, Xfinity God over here, Rod. But yeah, it's I mean, obviously, and then you come to Sunday's race. Corey LaJoie, just like we knew he would be, right there in the mix. As Kelly Thomason pointing out, hell of a race today, boys. All hail LaJoie 7. I love it. Love to see it. Man, we were close to and Brad Keselowski again. 1 lap to go. We've picked the race leader 1 lap to go, or the leading at the end of regulation in every single race this season, Rod. What do we have to do? Somebody said in the Discord we need an exact finishing position number 2 and pick that from now on.
I know, I'm telling you right now. It seems to be the way. Derek, buddy, thanks for joining us. Yeah, great hit on that, LaJoie. Yes. That was that's exactly what we needed to salvage a really good day. And you know, that's the thing about it. All you have to do is hit one, like we said, 22-1, and the rest of the woes kind of go away. As far as the Cup race, obviously it's fresh in our mind. We just finished watching it. I was satisfied with the way that race shook out. I do think that watching the utter just chaos, and we said it all leading into the race, and as far as what to expect, we use the word chaos continually, and really Trucks and Xfinity had all the chaos. And I think the Cup guys, they were watching, and they were like, we don't want this race to shake out that way. That is why there was a nice long stretch there in the middle where there was pretty much nothing going on. Everybody was happy to ride single file. Everybody was just kind of biding their time, logging laps, making sure that they kept everything clean till the end of one of the stages, B, or whatever, if something cranked off and they, had to pit or whatever. I just think they were happy to ride where they were riding, and it sort of just made it all. It wasn't boring. And that's the thing. Like, even that single file, like, I felt like I needed to catch my breath. You know what I'm saying? So I could understand why they were trying to ride single file, because even for me, the first part of that race was hairy enough to where I was like, man, even I've got to catch my breath. Maybe I'm just okay watching these guys kind of skate around a while and just let it go.
Well, and then you saw, 10 laps into the race, Bubba gets loose all by himself and just right into the wall. And so I think everybody at that point is like, and we'd seen it in qualifying, BJ McLeod and Christopher Bell both spun out by themselves. And then after literal Atlanta records for cautions for the truck and Xfinity races. So I think early on it was like, okay, everybody calm down. Let's have a seat here. Let's breathe. And then it didn't get so bad. And really, when it came to the big wrecks, they weren't even being overly aggressive or somebody really wrecking somebody. The Chastain one, it doesn't look like he ever hit Harvick. He just took the air off of him, and Harvick lost it. That's just part of again, the air and the drafting and all of that, how it works. And then the Almirola thing, second week in a row, bad luck with the tire situation, but he just blew a tire right in front of everyone. And both cases happened to be the guy who was leading the race at the time. And so, yeah, that's what created obviously the utter chaos. But Kelly's comment almost ripped my TV off the wall the last 3 weeks because we got screwed on the very last laps. Yes, same. I got very close to doing the same. And this would have been real nice if Brad Keselowski hung on. He led the last 65, 70 laps of that race, only to have, and they talked about it on the broadcast. He said he'd rather be second. And I guess that was the place to be because it worked out for Joey Logano, of course. But man, it would have been nice to have that Brad Keselowski 20-1 on top of that. But we still made out of there with a pretty solid day. At least we didn't go to overtime and lose all of our bets because it was starting to feel, because I'm looking at things. I'm like, Brad's leading, LaJoie keeps grabbing top Chevy. We got some solid things in place here. I was like, there's going to be just a massive crash up here. They're all going to wreck, and we're not going to catch any of these, are we?
Hey, once Kevin ended up getting collected in his wreck, I knew my card was pretty much toast, because after that, I just knew that there was nothing good was going to come out of the rest of that race once Kevin Harvick got tossed, because I felt like the Harvick bet was one of our best bets. And matter of fact, why don't we go ahead and start going through all of our bets from the Cup race, like we said, and we'll just talk through the rest of that race as it went down. I need to pull up the right one.
Let's start with your first one, which was HMS on the pole.
Yeah,
man, we expected them to show up, but the Fords, holy hell, 8 of the top 10, all Fords. Incredible single car speed from them. A lot of questions about whether that would translate to the race or not. I didn't think it would as much as it really did. You look at it, Logano probably did have the best car today. Obviously, he led right from the drop of the green and didn't look back in that first stage. and then kind of got shuffled out of there. But then Brad led a majority of the race as well. And so, yeah, we kind of missed it there. But the golden rule, I tweeted this out from the NASCAR Gambling Podcast Twitter, the number one commandment when it comes to super speedway racing, fade Kyle Larson. As Kelly says here, come on, Rod. Larson at super speedway fade was the best bet. Yes, it's I know a couple people had William Byron, and unfortunately Byron wrecked that one wreck right before, but Kyle Larson is going to find his way into a wreck at a super speedway no matter what. He will drive out of his way to find a wreck and not finish these races well, and it happens every time. I could not believe I sent you a screenshot. Like, as the race was starting, I was filling out that Clint Boyer, Super 6 thing, and he was the most picked driver to have the best finishing spot at the end of the. I'm like, has nobody ever watched a super speedway race? Like, so many people were. I heard a show. I won't name them, but a show with a very big name on it that was talking about how Kyle Larson was just great value this week, 14-1. Oh, what value! And Kyle, I was like, oh boy, okay. Well, and we see how that turned out. Again, he had that one top 5 finish in his entire career at Talladega last year, but it's just fading Kyle Larson at super speedways has been much more profitable than it hasn't. The one that I gave out was Kyle Busch over Kyle Larson. Looked a little hairy for Busch there. He got spun around in one of those. I can't remember. I think his might have been the earlier wreck with Kevin Harvick. And yeah, Kelly pointing out he did have a fast car. And we talked about that on the podcast too, though. I said he's going to have a fast car. He's going to look good through stage 1 through stage 2. You're going to be like, oh, there's Kyle Larson. He's looking like a threat. And then every time he cannot avoid it. He can't avoid the chaos at the end. And he even, I mean, you can tell in his post-race comments, he does not like super speedways, and he's been vocal about that before. And he can't figure it out for whatever reason. So Kyle Busch over Kyle Larson was the first cash of the day, -105. Head-to-heads are so tricky on super speedways, but that's generally the one I target is just anybody against Kyle Larson, and that one hits more than it doesn't.
Yeah, and that was the thing about Kyle Larson too. He did have such a fast car. He was looking good. You were absolutely right. You handicapped it dead on. And I'm not just kissing your ass for it, but I'm just saying you handicapped it dead on.
Yeah, I was going to say, bring that comment back.
Yeah, JDK, buddy. Yeah, he's been listening to us for all the season. He doesn't own a yacht yet. Listen, we're sorry that we didn't give you your yacht. In fact, you're probably poking holes in the boat at this point because you just want to sink it for the insurance money. And we're sorry for that too, but I'm just saying.
Blink twice if that clown from the Discord has hacked your Twitter and is complaining about free bets not winning him anything.
All right, listen, I'm going to go on record as saying this. All right, we did have someone pop in the Discord and express to us that they weren't very thrilled with us, and that's fine. I wholeheartedly think everybody is entitled to their opinion.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, sometimes you judge somebody based off of one show, you judge somebody based off of 1 week, you don't fully pull through and figure stuff out. Okay, but here's the thing. I'm just saying we hit a 22-1 today. So
it's not the same guy, Kelly. Don't worry. I was just kidding. The JDK, he's always in the Discord as well. He's cool. I think he was playing into it. He was setting it up for us. But no, first of all, not an airport. Okay. So you don't need to announce your departure. Nobody cares if you're going to leave. Bye. See you later. We're not going to hit all the bets. It doesn't work like that. It's called gambling for a reason. We're here to try and make it fun for you, try and teach you about it, how to do it. And we give out some picks, and some of them hit, some of them don't. The last time somebody left a bad comment about how we didn't hit any bets or we didn't talk enough about betting, the next week we hit a 14-1 at the Clash of the Coliseum. This guy complains this morning, and then we hit a 22-1 at Corey LaJoie. So if somebody else would like to drop a complaint in there, next week we'll take that good juju because it's been working out pretty good for us so far.
I'm just saying, literally, go ahead, keep talking because those are the ones the biggest bets hit. So I'd like for that to keep going. Derek saying trolls make the world go round. Some people can't handle successful individuals. I mean, look, and I'm not going to give this guy any more oxygen than he deserves. But all I will say to you, the loyal fans of ours that do listen and do enjoy what we're putting out, thank you. I mean, it just makes you guys listening all the more rewarding, given that we know that you'll stick with us through each other kissing each other's ass, some bad stretches like Xfinity and trucks, and just, we're having
Well, yeah, and I mean, that truck race was horrible. I don't think we hit. I don't have to look. We might have hit one bet of that entire thing. It was just horrendous, and we were like, well, that one sucks. Let's go get a different. We'll move on to the next race, and is what it is. Is whatever. If you don't want to listen, you don't have to. But to all of you out there that do listen, all of you in the Discord, again today, hard to keep up with the Discord. It's just so happening all the time. We appreciate it. Love to see all you guys hanging out in there, coming to hang out with us here after the race. The numbers don't lie. The bosses see it. So, if one guy's, and he even said that he was one of those, what did he called himself a fool that pays for picks or something. Yeah. This is free, Rod. You have to listen to us to get the picks. Sorry about that. But, a couple ad reads here and there, but it's free. So I don't know what else we can do for you.
Well, I mean, other than physically place the bets for him to win, I don't know what else. But anyways, all right, I did have Harvick over Suarez, and Harvick is a top 10. Both of those were looking fantastic. But here's the thing about it. That move, and I watched it again, and I actually didn't think that Chastain hit him to begin with. Like when I was watching it live, I didn't think he got into him. Like it looked like Kevin sort of slid up and Ross Chastain slid underneath him and sort of took the air out from underneath him. And that's, once they got slowed down, it looked exactly like that. That's exactly what happened. He may have touched him like Tony said, but just ever so slightly. And I don't think that was Ross Chastain's fault. I think Kevin's car got squirrely, and that's just what happens. Like when the air gets taken out from underneath it, there's nothing left to do. You pick those back tires up off the ground, you got no control, you're in the wall. So I can't fault Chastain for that, but it did sort of throw everything else into turmoil after that, because Kevin Harvick, obviously leading the race, would have been over Suarez and would have been in the top 10 to hit both of those. Unfortunately, that did not hit. And yeah, I mean, just so much. And we always, we tell you, you just can't be surprised when stuff like that happens on a super speedway type race.
Yeah. Well, and again, obviously he didn't listen to the disclaimer that we give every time we talk about super speedways. Some things are just unpredictable. I mean, you can't get much better than being out in front of the field leading the race. What else do you want Kevin Harvick to do? Again, Chastain, it didn't even look like touching him. If he did, it was after Harvick was already squirrely from the air. So it's just super speedway racing. That's how it's going to go. You got plus money on a Harvick bet, so I don't think it was a bad thing. And then it's not like Suarez really looked that great all day anyways. I mean, he was never up in the mix, and he just happened to survive the chaos longer than Harvick did, and that's how those head-to-heads go sometimes. Boy, this one was done nice and early. I had Bubba Wallace, top Toyota at plus 450, top 10 at plus 150. Again, we talked about Bubba. He's great at super speedways. He's got a solid history there. And just real early in that race, he lost it. Couldn't keep it. If he could have just spun out and been fine, but he couldn't keep it off the wall. And once he hit the wall pretty hard, I thought his day was going to be over at first. And then like, well, maybe he could pull what Ryan Blaney ended up doing. You go multiple laps down, you can get those back a lot easier at the super speedways. But he never had speed again, and that car wasn't able to keep at the pack. And we never really got a chance to see how this might have materialized. Obviously his teammate Tyler Reddick was running up there at the front at the end, so maybe that could have been Bubba up there as well. A couple of Toyotas were up there in that pack as well. But just, yeah, this one was gone early, unfortunately. And again, that's just super speedway racing.
Yeah. My next head-to-head had some legs for a hot minute, and then it didn't, and then it did, and then it didn't. I mean, obviously we knew Chastain had to start from the very, very back. I had Chastain over Denny Hamlin. And so obviously Hamlin was dominating this side of it for a very long time, but then Chastain found some speed, got up to the front, and was basically, in control, up with Harvick at the top. And then I think that's when all hell broke loose for him, because then after that restart, it was just never the same for Chastain. He wasn't able to keep up that same speed, picked the wrong line a couple of times, and basically just fell out of favor. And obviously we know Hamlin was fighting there at the very end to be one of the leaders, if not the winner of the race. So it's hard to beat somebody in the top three if you're not, and look, they made a charge at the end, and he was in the bottom line when the bottom line was surging forward. And I thought for sure at that point, Chastain would find enough partners down on the bottom with him to sort of bring that line up. But I mean, the laps were running out. He didn't get enough support, and it just basically didn't materialize after that. Wasn't for a lack of a good car. It wasn't for lack of a fast car. But yeah, I mean, he just never was able to keep it after that incident with Harvick. And obviously Hamlin was a really strong Toyota all day long, running up in the front for most of the race, other than the fact that he did get kind of shuffled back there a little bit too. But you know, I just chalk this up to that momentum being lost once he and Harvick got into it, and just, you know,
Yeah.
and I don't know if part of that was mental too as well, because maybe he was just, you know, because Chastain's involved in a lot of stuff. You know what I'm saying? And when he does something like that, I know that if I'm in a little scuffle, it takes me a few minutes to calm down, and it takes my body a few minutes to sort of just chill. And maybe that's what happened to him, is he got a little worked up and can't really do that at 185 miles an hour and be a clean driver.
Yeah, could have been. Yeah, JDK says he had high hopes for Blaney today. The penalty was so early. He raced a good race. I'm almost done with hoping with Blaney at this point. As much as I was on him last year, and he was one of my favorite drivers to bet on, and he can do it. I know he can. I just got to see it from him again, I guess. I don't know, but yeah, whatever. Anyways, next up for me, I had Byron and Brad to be top Ford and top Chevy, 30-1. Brad obviously ends up being the second best Ford, finishing second to Joey Logano. And then really, if you look at the Chevy camp, if Byron had been able to stay in longer, obviously he got caught up in the wreck. But I mean, Corey LaJoie 4th, Eric Jones 8th, Kyle Busch 10th. So Chevy wasn't really as good as you maybe expected them to be. So if Byron would have been able to hang on longer, and Brad obviously ended up being close to being that top Ford. So 30-1, I felt like it was good odds. Didn't cash this time, which it was a long shot. That's how those work.
Chevy just could not get it going. That was the craziest thing about it. I mean, obviously Corey LaJoie, we'll get there later, but it was basically all Ford and Toyota all the way deep down until the end when Corey found his way up to the top, thanks to that whole last lap and last couple of laps scuffle. But yeah, I mean, it was all Ford and Toyota, like for the first 8 spots, basically. And it was just a matter of when LaJoie was battling Cindric and then battling Bowman there for a little while too at the end. Yeah, it just seemed as if Chevy didn't have it after the last part of the race, honestly.
Yeah. And don't get that confused for anything changing. It's a super speedway, so it's just things are different. We saw some of the Chevys get wrecked out, spun out, all that stuff. But we're going to a road course next week. I'd be surprised if Chevy doesn't pretty much dominate that race. And once we're back on ovals again in a couple weeks, it's going to be the Chevy show again, I think. So don't mistake this for Ford and Toyota making gains. It's a super speedway, and it's not comparable to any of these other types of tracks.
Yeah. Once we get to actual, not super speedway mile and a halfs, then it's all Chevy from there on out.
Yep.
All right. I had Josh Berry as a top 10 car. He was for a while. I mean, a top 5 car rather, but he was for a while, and he was close to the top 5. He never really cracked the top 5, as it were, but he was always right there. He was in the top 10 for a hot minute. He was in the top 8 for a little bit too. I mean, he was creeping ever so close to a top 5 finish. I just needed a little more chaos for that to happen. Yeah. He slipped back. Obviously, it was tough for him to keep it going after he got collected too in that last wreck. And I mean, that was where my bad luck kept going.
Yeah, and he got collected in that one, but he kept going. I mean, 18th place is still a good, solid finish. They'll take that. Again, they're just trying to limp through, get some car owner points which they're obviously behind the 8 ball with the 100-point penalty, but until Elliott gets back. But, I mean, that race could have easily gone into overtime, gone into 2 overtimes, 3 overtimes, and then attrition could have put Berry up there. He kept himself in position. If he's 18th, one wreck, he could be in 5th just like that. So at the odds you got it at, I don't think that it was a bad bet to make. Next up, Corey LaJoie's corner. This one paid off pretty good for us. Kelly did just ask in the chat as well, how long is LaJoie signed for? Would like to see him with a half-decent team with decent equipment. I would also love to see that. I think he might just be on a year-to-year basis. I don't know even if he did have a longer deal, I think he's done so much for Spire that they would let him out if he did get an opportunity at a better team, or a bigger team could obviously buy him out. Man, I've been a big proponent of him going to Stewart-Haas, maybe taking over that 4 car or something. But then I look at the way the rest of the Stewart-Haas cars run, and I'm like, gosh, is that even that great of an organization to go to right now? And once they lose Kevin Harvick, is there, I don't know. But man, I would love to see Corey LaJoie. That's why I was hoping he would get in the 9 car. I mean, think about him in that 9 car today. He could, I mean, he was up there with these guys, but he could have been even more up there potentially. But oh well, beyond what it is for now. But I really hope that LaJoie, obviously he's starting to get up there in age a little bit, but he's still got some time, and maybe he'll get a chance eventually. I would love to see it. He's obviously way outperformed in the Spire equipment. We've seen it on a week-to-week basis so far. And then, obviously he showed us this week. So I went all in on him. Top 5, 7-1. He hits that with the 4th place. I tossed out top 3 at 12-1. I didn't officially say I was going to bet on it, but I tossed it out there. So close, Rod. Obviously finishes 4th, so he didn't quite get that 3rd anyways. But top 10 at plus 225, gave that out as well. Hits that. Top Chevrolet, 22-1. I was more so than I was watching the Brad Keselowski battle for the lead. I was watching Corey LaJoie go to Top Chevy, and then Alex Bowman would come on the inside and take it, and then LaJoie would come on the outside and take it. And I was just rooting for that outside line to keep going, so LaJoie would get that Top Chevy, and he did. Also had him at 50-1 to win. I thought for a second as they were coming off of turn 4, LaJoie went down low. I thought maybe Joey goes up to block him, and they all wreck into the wall, part the seas, and LaJoie comes through. Oh, it was a sweat. It was close. I thought maybe it would get there, but didn't. But obviously he cashes the 700, plus 700 at top 5, plus 225 for the top 10, 22-1 for Top Chevrolet. Again, at super speedways, we say go into it expecting to lose all these. You come out with any winners, and it's a win. A 22-1 is a nice way to end the weekend. Man, I'd love to see him win, but I don't know that we're going to get these odds on him again next time in Atlanta. You think maybe the books will have learned by then, but if you're seeing any Talladega lines already, go ahead and place that bet, because I'm going to be on LaJoie at Talladega again.
I look at this point, and he even said it himself too. He was like, "They got to see me up here racing with these guys. They got to see me every week bringing this 7 car up into the mix, and just getting used to me being in the front." And so, I mean, I think the field
he's in the playoffs, Rod. He's in the playoffs right now.
He is right now, and I think he belongs there. And in fact, if he crosses the finish line for a win in the next few weeks, that's going to really solidify it. I want to bring that back up. That is, yes, Logano is hot. Thank you,
yes.
Linda.
Yeah, thanks, Linda. He, man, yeah, it's been a bit of a rough start for the Fords. I wouldn't say he's had super great weeks so far. I know they've struggled a little bit, but obviously defending champion, and he breaks that curse. I think, what was it? We talked about going into the season, defending champion hadn't won in like the first 10 races in a bunch of years or something like that. It had been a long time. And yes, Derek's comment here. Corey LaJoie is an unrestricted free agent in 2024. That 4 car is available. From your ears to God's ears, whatever, your lips to God's ears, whatever the saying is, something like that. I would love to see that happen. Keep that crew chief. Rodney Childers is so good. I know you got those Stewart-Haas connections over there with your buddy Brian Murphy, Derek. By the way, I want to know his thoughts on if this was super speedway racing this week or not, because he was making the argument on your podcast last week about not being a super speedway race, and cold take, I think, at this point.
Well, yeah, I mean, at this point, we've seen it now. So, all right, I had Tyler Reddick as the top Toyota. I hate Christopher Bell. I hate Christopher Bell. That was about the most brutal that you could lose that, because Tyler Reddick had that for
wrapped up.
He had it on
with
lock.
Keselowski. Yes.
Yep. Bell just left him out to dry, and that line just disappeared, and Reddick could not get it back. Unfortunately, Bell finishes as the top Toyota. Tyler Reddick finishes in 5th as the second Toyota. He held off Denny Hamlin too, man. He held off Denny Hamlin. But I do got to give up props to Ty Gibbs as a top 10. Somebody in the Discord had Ty Gibbs as a top 10 finisher.
I think that
Good
was at
on
Nick
them.
Fortune, I think maybe. But yeah, they man, and I regret not saying it because I thought to myself, and I didn't play him, so I thought to myself after qualifying, Ty Gibbs is going to be a good DFS play because he started way back in the 30s. And then I was like, I don't like giving out Ty Gibbs love, and that was a mistake. Should have said that. Should have played him, but we learned our lesson, I guess. The JDK said RCR should add a third car for LaJoie. They might need to add a third car for Austin Hill. I know we're not in the Xfinity portion yet, but good Lord, that guy might be needing a Cup Series ride here soon.
All right. Let's talk about the winners then. You had for yours so close to a couple of good ones.
Couple of good ones. Kyle Busch 12-1. Obviously he got spun in one of those wrecks, but recovered. I think he ended up in 10th. Yeah, he finished 10th. He was hanging around all day. Wasn't necessarily the best car like he was at Daytona, but he was hanging around 12-1. Felt like that was good odds. Brad Keselowski 20-1. This was the one, Rod. Obviously we already talked about it. Man. Until the last lap, he had it. It was so great hearing those spotters. And I know TJ Majors is really good at what he does, really good at super speedway spotting. He was the only guy Dale Jr. trusted. Still the only guy Dale Jr. trusts. He spots for Dale Jr. in the Xfinity when he makes his appearances there. So was cool to hear that. Almost had a 20-1. Would have been great. Bubba 22-1. Again, that one was just lost early with that spin and hitting the wall. And then AJ Allmendinger 50-1. Little disappointed in AJ. I mean, a 16th place finish, that's a solid day for them. But what we've seen from him in the past with super speedway racing has been a lot better. Wasn't quite as much chaos. I mean, we still ended up with 28 cars running at the end. So not as much chaos as you sometimes see on the super speedways. Maybe he needed a little more help in that department. But I had higher hopes, and he never really was in the picture. I mean, again, a 16th place is fine. You'll take that any day at a super speedway for that type of team, but had higher hopes for Allmendinger.
Yeah, unfortunately, me too. And really, you talked about there's only 5 cautions on the day, and that wasn't necessarily as many as I anticipated, but it still wasn't a lot, honestly. And only 20 lead changes through the whole course of this race, not necessarily all that crazy of a race like we talked about.
That's only counting the lead changes at the line, because I think Brad Keselowski and Joey Logano exchanged the lead about 5,000 times in the last 15-20 laps there.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. All right, I had Ross Chastain as the outright. Unfortunately, like I said, that didn't hit either, but not for lack of Chastain trying. Who knows what would have happened had Kevin Harvick been able to battle him and not spin out, and Chastain not getting closer. Yeah, unfortunately, Cody Ware did not come through for us in this
higher
race.
hopes for Ware. I mean, again, though, like we talked about on the DFS show, he did exactly what we expected. He survived the chaos and ended up being one of the last cars still running, and it just wasn't as much chaos as you needed for a Cody Ware bet, but ends up with the 25th place. That's a good run for a team like that. JJ Yaley right there in 26. I mean, those guys just hang out at the back and avoid the wrecks all day, and that's when you can hit them on a top 5 like he did last year at Daytona. They need the amount of chaos that we got in that race.
Sure do. All right. Well, listen, we're going to go ahead and move on. I think we've thoroughly analyzed the heck out of this race. I think when they come back again in July, they've got a lot more notes, obviously, to look at now. They've got a lot more data. They've got a lot more to figure out. Do not stay out on 78 lap tires, or they will blow.
I mean, and they talked about that tire where they didn't think was going to be a big deal, and it didn't seem to be until it was. And at that point, when you're leading the race and you blow a tire, not good for a lot of the people behind you.
It's like when you're in your own personal car and you start to see things start to wear down, and you're like, I can make it another trip. I can make it another trip. You know what? No, that's fine. I see that thread. Nothing's going to happen to it. And then all of a sudden you're riding down the freeway and pow.
You're like, oh man, why'd that go? Oh, geez, what happened?
And I thought I had at least another 500 miles on this. What the heck? So, well, thanks Amarola for that.
Yep. Oh well.
Just trying to push a situation farther.
But hey, that took out Larson, which was expected.
I know, right? Wait, there was a question here. It was, did Joey have tires as fresh as Brad did?
I want to say at the end, everybody had the same tires, right? I think because after that caution, which would have been the Almirola caution, I believe was the last one, I think everybody came in and had tires at that point. So
Pretty sure Brad took
feel,
2, and I think Joey took 2 as well.
Yeah, I feel like everybody was on the same page or pretty close. I don't think tires didn't seem to be a big problem other than that Almirola blow. I mean, you couldn't really tell when tires were getting worn. It didn't seem to be costing speed or being a huge advantage for somebody that had 4 tires suddenly. So I don't know the exact situation. They didn't talk about it much because I don't think it really mattered other than Almirola losing his after being out for so long on him.
Yeah, me either. All right. Well, there were 2 other races this weekend. We will quickly touch on both of those because, well, we've had bets on them, so we might as well recap them for you guys as well. One good, one not so good. So
yeah, we should talk about the truck race real fast and get that out of the way. We don't need to end on that one.
No, when we come back from the break, we're going to talk through the truck race and then take a quick break after that because we don't want to talk about the truck race for very long. But first, let's tell you about WynnBET. WynnBET's the official online sportsbook of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. WynnBET is now active in Massachusetts and a ton of other states. Be on the lookout for the WynnBET Win Hour each Thursday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. During WynnBET Win Hour, marquee games of the week are going to have better odds on WynnBET, giving you a larger payout opportunity. And March Madness is here, going on right now. So many ways to bet on the big dance. Sign up today. Receive a special offer. Bet $100. Get $100, limited to state availability. And of course, for our DGens only, if you hit the biggest long shot parlay of the week, you're going to get a $1,000 free credit. So much to choose from. And all you got to do is head over to wynnbet.com or download the WynnBET app. Offer subject to change. Terms and conditions to wynnbet.com. Must be 21 or older, present in the state where playthrough WynnBET is available. If you or somebody who has a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. The SGPN guys are going to be hosting a Final Four watch party at the historic Ice House in Pasadena, California this Saturday. Well, not this Saturday, a Saturday, April 1st at 7:30 p.m. Get all the details at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/icehouse. Looking to hang out with Sean and Ryan at Stadium Swim and watch the biggest golf tournament in the world? You can win a 3-night stay at Circa Las Vegas to hang with the guys. The contest is completely free to enter. Just go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/golf party. And if you don't win the contest, you can still get a discount on a room using promo code SGP15. All righty. Well, like I said, there was a truck race. Trucks ran, trucks finished. Some of them did, not all of them. This was a just clown show, Cody.
Yeah, this one was rough. Okay, let's move on. Oh, just kidding. Yeah, I mean, it was just like I said, a record number of cautions for the Truck Series at Atlanta. You obviously expect more now in the new configuration than we had before, but there was a lot. I think ended up 11 or 12 at the end there.
There's 11
in front of me, but 11. Yep.
11. Yeah.
We've, a lot of people don't like John Hunter Nemechek. We already kind of knew that, but that was reaffirmed. Kyle Busch Motorsports trucks are fast. That was reaffirmed. And yeah, Christian Eckes, very impressive. Obviously kind of got dumped by Thor Sport at the end of last season, kind of just landed in this Bill McAnally ride, grabs the win for them early on. And yeah, it's boy, it was this race was a mess.
This race was an absolute mess. And that was the thing about it too. This race right here was about everything that you did not want to see in the next 2 series, because there was so much calamity. There were so many trucks banging into each other. There were so many trucks just picking the wrong time to block or doing the wrong things, pushing at the wrong times. And it just sent so many good trucks scrambling for just to finish this race. And, we lost guys like Carson Hocevar. We lost guys like Corey Heim, and it just was so frustrating to watch as all of these trucks were in the lead and then not in the lead and then wrecked out and not wrecked out. And I mean, the overtime killed most of our bets as well. I mean, we had a lot of the stuff going until the overtime, and it was bad, Cody, bad.
Yeah, and again, I mean, all the calamity and all the wrecks and all the cautions, and only 6 trucks didn't finish this race. There was still 30 running at the end, which was kind of insane. But it just, it turned into a big disaster. And there was a couple things that, maybe had some hope for a little while, but just didn't quite happen. I had Tanner Gray, top 3 at plus 850, top 5 at plus 325. Also had him to win Group A. This one ended early. It was much like the Bubba thing. He got squeezed into the wall. I don't even remember who it was that squeezed him up there, but squeezed into the wall, and then he didn't have any speed after that. We saw him at Daytona perform really well. I feel like we would have gotten more of that this time. We ended up seeing some of the other, he's with, who's his team? Tricon. We saw Corey Heim was looking really good for a while, and they ended up having issues as well. I think it was Lane Riggs actually that ended up putting him into the wall. But unfortunate start to the day for Tanner Gray, and then kind of just all downhill from there.
Yeah. Well, I had Stuart Friesen as a top 5 truck. He was for a few laps. He was sort of around the front for a little while, but then sort of disappeared in the back again. I mean, this one had legs until it didn't. So I'm just frustrated. It wasn't a bad day overall for Stuart Friesen, but definitely not the greatest of days altogether. Like I said, it's just, he wasn't a truck that was in the front the whole time. But he was there until he wasn't. And this bet was cashing until the very late stages of that race. And when it didn't cash, I wanted to throw something against a wall.
Yeah. I had Carson Hocevar over Matt DiBenedetto. This one really didn't look good all day. I probably need to respect DiBenedetto a little more on the super speedways. He's pretty good at those. He ends up with a 6th place finish. Hocevar was kind of so all day. Ended up getting caught up in one of those late wrecks and fell all the way back out of the race, but fell to 31st, unfortunately. He started 5th, so it looked like maybe he would have, they did, qualifying rained out like we talked about, but was starting up front, so you thought maybe he'd run up there all day, but didn't really, I don't even think he scored stage points in either stage, so it wasn't really up there much. And DiBenedetto did what he does and just kind of hung around and ended up with the 6th place finish.
Yeah, it was a frustrating day for Hocevar. He did find his way up to the front a couple of times in that front pack, but never could really hang on. Just, again, not a solid day for him. I had Tyler Ankrum as the winner of one of the groups, winner of Group F. This one had Colby Howard in it. He beat Colby Howard. This one had, the only one he didn't beat was Jake Garcia. So unfortunately with that, obviously that doesn't cash the bet. So, but Ankrum was up front most of this race. And he was in that front pack over the 3 or 4 trucks, 5 trucks for better part of that race. And then just, again, kind of got caught up in it, lost that momentum, ended up finishing in 26th place. Like I said, Jake Garcia was in that group. He finished 18th. Brett Holmes was in that group. He finished 13th. And then, of course, Colby Howard was 27th. So, yeah, tough day for Tyler Ankrum. He had a great truck. He was around.
Yeah, he was looking really good for a while. And then, I think he ended up getting caught up in one of those spins late, finished the race, but at that point wasn't as good as he had been. Speaking of Brett Holmes, I had him as the top 3 at plus 1,300, top 5 at plus 650. These ended up not looking too bad. He ends up in 13th. So, again, if you're 13th at the end, you're not that far from being in 5th with another accident or two. I was kind of just hoping he would survive the chaos and get up there. He survived it, just quite get up far enough to cash these. Again, it was the trucks, and we talked about this. There wasn't a lot of great options this week. We didn't have the top manufacturer bets that we've had in the past and had success on at Daytona. We didn't have top 10s for trucks or Xfinity, which that's really where you can get into it on the super speedways is the top 10s. Even a guy like Brett Holmes, I would have taken as a top 10. Wouldn't have cashed, but obviously in 13th, he's closer to top 10 than he is top 5. So not great lines this week. And I think that kind of hurt us in a way.
Yeah. Well, I had Ford as the winning manufacturer. Obviously Ford did not win this race. It was not a Ford. I'm so ticked off about that. There were so many good Fords out there that could have done it. But unfortunately it was a Chevy that were 1, 2, and 4. Toyota sort of wedged itself there in 3rd. The first Ford was Ben Rhodes, who I actually had, and I'll just say it now. I had Ben Rhodes to win that race. Yeah, he comes over and finishes in 5th place as the top Ford, but did not win that race. And he had every opportunity there at points in that race, and especially at the end, to win. Overtime killed us. And unfortunately, we did not get a Ford to win, and we did not get Ben Rhodes to win.
Yeah, you had the Thor Sport trucks. We're all hooked up together there for a while, up front, looking good. Just didn't quite fall their way. I had Spencer Boyd top 5 at 15-1, top 3 at 50-1, and to win at 250-1. Again, this was kind of just throwing a dart out there, hoping that maybe he would survive things. Ends up in 21st. It's not a horrible run for as not great of a truck as that is. He kind of had flashes throughout the day. He'd get up a little bit, but it just needed more. I hate to say needed more chaos, but we needed more cars to go out during the chaos. There was constant chaos. Not enough cars or trucks in this case were going out because of the chaos. And that's what these types of bets you're just hoping that he's one of the few trucks left in the race basically at the end, and that gets him up there and in the position to do this. So the 21st is really a great day for him, and at the odds you got him. Again, I would take this again, but it just not enough chaos, at least taking trucks out.
No, and it didn't help my winning truck number over 50.5. Fell flat on this one. This was plus 280, but of course, like I said, we had Ben Rhodes in the mix there. We actually had, Ben Rhodes
top 10.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There was 4. Yeah. There was all circling. Matt Crafton had led 29 laps in this race as the 88 truck. Ben Rhodes led 3 in the 99. Timmy Hill led 2 in the 56. Jack Wood led 2 in the 51. Like, all those guys were circling the win. And unfortunately, I think we even had it too until the very end. Really would have been one of the trucks over 50, but that didn't hit either in the chaos that was overtime.
Yeah, I think there was 7 trucks over the number 50, and 6 of them finished in the top 11. So again, for at plus odds, this was a good bet. I think that Jack Wood could have won this race had he not been just flat out dumped by John Hunter Nemechek. He was one of those spins that Nemechek just turned the guy and didn't really give him a chance. So at plus 280, I feel like that was a really good number. You end up with 6 of them in the top 11. Again, at this type of track, if they're up there, they've got a chance to win it. Eckes did race the 98 last year, so if he was still in that truck, it would have cashed. But bit of a stretch, I guess, trying to get that. I had a couple winners I tossed out there. Carson Hocevar, talked about him already. Not really up there all day. Got caught up in a wreck. Gray, I had him at 30-1. Again, stuffed ball early. Didn't get to see his full potential. Brett Holmes, 60-1. Talked about him. Solid run up there in 13th. Or where'd he end up? He was, 13th. Right ahead of him in 12th. Haley Deegan, 100-1. Again, these last couple I was really just throwing out there as long shots to get some more wrecks. And when Deegan ended up in 12th, again, a couple of those guys in front of her wreck, and she's got a chance to win at 100-1. So I felt like they were decent sprinkles. Maybe I wish I'd have done something differently up at the top with Hocevar, 18-1 even, and he didn't really impress that much while he was around, and then obviously got caught up in the wreck. So just, again, we're going to have races like this. It happens. We're going to have races where we hit 22s and 1s. We're headed to Dakota this next week where we hit Ross Chastain before it was cool to bet on him at 40-1 last year. And so you're going to have ups. You're going to have downs. This one was a down. The other 2 races were up. So being up in 2 of the 3, I'll take it. F1, if you listen to the F1 Gambling Podcast, we had a good day over there as well. Rod had a good day, I should say. But it was a plus card as well. So 3 out of the 4 races this weekend ended up pretty good. This truck race was the one that just things didn't quite fall for us. We were close on a few maybe, but needed things to go a little differently.
Yep, this one was a total stinker. So we will move on. Just like our tweet said earlier, we're on to Xfinity, and we need to be there very shortly. Let's take a break first and tell you about Underdog Fantasy. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is heating up for March Madness, and College Pick'em is a great way to get in on the action, especially if your bracket is busted after day 1. Plus, Underdog Fantasy is your favorite college basketball player props. Head over to UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Promo code SGPN. Yes, you, the one that can see me pointing straight at the screen. That means you're watching on YouTube. You're watching us live right now. Thank you for keeping us afloat, keeping our show going on YouTube. Obviously, we're new kids on the block on this channel, but we are very much in love with the fact that we get to do this, especially live, talk to you guys in person, and just hash out all of our feelings as we go through what is a crazy, crazy NASCAR season. Continue to join us, continue to subscribe, continue to like these videos, continue to hit that bell so you know exactly when we're going to be live like we are right now, and just have a fantastic time with us. Thank you all for joining us. Continue to do so. Please love us. All right, speaking of love, people love cashing tickets, and that's exactly what we were able to do for them in the Xfinity race, where everything went bad in the truck race. The world redeemed itself on the Xfinity track for sure. This race was a lot more profitable for everybody out there. And it was just as chaotic as the truck race, which is crazy, but we cashed more tickets in this one despite all of it. There was 12 cautions in this race. It was 2 hours, 44 minutes, 13 lead changes. The margin of victory was 0.085. That was crazy. 2,205 green flag passes in this race. And it went into overtime.
Yeah. And again, we were so close on hitting the big winner on this one. I'm just going to jump ahead and talk about it now. Parker Kligerman gave him out at 30-1. He had a hot rod this weekend, looking so good. He set it up perfectly. I think that he had everything exactly where he wanted it to be. He was going to make that run on Austin Hill, and then Daniel fucking Hemrick. He makes me hate every time I see him out on the track. Not in 12th place where he normally resides week in and week out. He decided to punch his way up there, got into Kligerman. Kligerman got into Hill. I thought that Kligerman, he kind of bounced off of him. Looked like maybe he would still get him. He ends up going across the line backwards, almost in third, but ends up in the 4th place. Ryan Truex just edged him out there. Luckily, Hemrick didn't win because that would have pissed me off even more. But, man, Parker Kligerman, shout out to him. Just an outstanding run for Kligerman. And we'll talk about him more as we had a couple of different bets on him as well. But I wanted to throw that out there because that was impressive. Austin Hill, I think he becomes the 3rd driver to win. He won 3 of the first 5 races now. And the other 2, one's in the Hall of Fame, and Mark Martin. Kyle Busch is in the Hall of Fame the day he's eligible. So that's a pretty solid list to join there. Austin Hill, a guy we've been pretty big on all last year. Man, he looks good, Rod. He has shown up. 2 of those are super speedways, yes, but he's been good everywhere else as well. Obviously, we hit him 20-1 a couple weeks ago. Was at Las Vegas, I think, where he won that race for us. So, yeah, been a great start to the season for him. Getting into the betting side of things, Riley Herbst, the Discord favorite, I guess you could call him. Everybody in the Discord loves Riley Herbst. I do as well. Had him over Sheldon Creed. Both of these guys looked good throughout the day. Creed was up there mixing it up all day. Creed finished 2nd to his teammate in stage 1 just by the blink of an eye. You almost thought that Creed got him there at the end. And then stage 2, Creed was in 4th. So he ended up running good all day. But Riley Herbst, same thing. 5th in stage 1, 2nd in stage 2, ends up in 5th place in stage 3. So he ends up with the better side of this head-to-head. Again, just you can trust Riley Herbst to get you good finishes week in and week out. That doesn't change even on a super speedway. And man, I know that we've not always said wonderful things about him, but he's starting to change my opinion on him a little bit. And if he keeps it up, there's some open rides in that Stewart-Haas camp going into next season. If Monster wants to take that partnership to the next level, and I could see it happening. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But good start there with Riley Herbst over Sheldon Creed at -110.
Yep, that was a fun one to watch too, because again, I joked about my favorite Canadian, not from Canada, but from California, running a great race. Sheldon Creed was in the mix for a lot of it. He was up front for a lot of it. And this one came down to just Riley Herbst was better consistently. Sheldon Creed, we talked about him just having bad luck and not being able to finish a race where he runs most of it. And that's exactly what happened here, is he dropped down like a rock afterwards. And he
ended up all the way back in 21st.
He got squeezed, or he just got, in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yep. You left hung out to dry and you go backward quickly.
Yep. Well, this next bet cashed exactly the way I said it would. And that was Ryan Truex as a top 3 car. I went back and said that was what he does around these tracks. And that's what he does. And that's what he's been. So Truex to have a top 3 car, he did. And in fact, he led no laps in this, but he was in and around. He started in 4th place. He was down, he was back, he was down, he was back. Ryan Truex was the biggest yo-yo of the entire race, and I did not even think that he was going to finish third until the final chaos ensued, and everybody was topsy-turvy, and Kligerman was backwards, and the world was all going in slow motion for Truex, but he managed to find his way through the chaos into third place to cash this ticket.
I would never advocate for him to cut that beautiful hair, but if he did, they could pull an old switcheroo and put him in a 19 car on super speedways, and maybe the better Truex brother would show up at those, because Ryan Truex, the much better super speedway racers of the Truex brothers. Great call on this. He got it just by the skin. He barely beat out the backwards Kligerman car. But hey, again, at super speedways, there is an element of luck, and sometimes it did not fall. None of the luck fell our way in the Truck Series. It all fell our way in this one. We will take it. So it was a good call by you. I had Ryan Sieg over Jeb Burton. Again, Ryan Sieg just up there all day long. There was a point in this race, Rod, where the top three of the top four were all guys that I gave out at over 25-1 to end up winning this race. And Sieg was one of those guys. I gave him out 60-1, but also gave him out over Burton. Had a great race, ran good all day. Again, he was up there throughout the day, 8th in stage 1, 6th in stage 2, ends up 11th in the final tally. Burton had gotten caught up in one of the wrecks early, got some damage, recovered very well. He ends up with a 16th place finish, so props to him there. But Ryan Sieg, a guy I will never quit betting on in the super speedways, because he just shows up every time. Man, he's been so close. He's going to get that win eventually, Rod, and I'm going to have that big ticket on him when he finally does. But just a guy that you can always trust there, and it paid off again here.
Imagine a day where Sieg and LaJoie win on the same day.
That weekend would be crazy. Spencer Boyd wins on Friday, Ryan Sieg on Saturday, Corey LaJoie on Sunday. We sweep the weekend.
You're eating lobster. You're eating lobster.
We're going to be partying it hard, that one.
All right. Well, I had Daniel Hemrick over Sam Mayer. And listen, for the most part, I know you puked, but I cashed this ticket.
You skipped one. Why'd you have to go to the Hemrick one already? Jeez.
Oh yeah, I forgot. I'm sorry. I glanced over. Yeah, okay. I'll go back to that one then. That one's a fun one to talk about. We'll talk about that one in a second. But I already announced my Hemrick over Mayer. Mayer was actually in front of Hemrick for a lot of this as well, and Hemrick just managed to find his way into the right pack at the right time. Obviously, at the end, especially when he found his way to a second place finish. But Mayer ran a pretty damn good race himself. Unfortunately, could not pull the finish out that he wanted. Sam Mayer finishes in 9th, whereas Daniel Hemrick finishes in 2nd. But I mean, for a long time, this was not looking good for Hemrick, and Mayer was definitely the better car out of all of it. But super speedway racing doesn't matter if you have a better car. Matters where you are at the end, and Hemrick was in front of Mayer when the checkered flag dropped. So I'll take that cash.
In Sam Mayer's defense, he did his part. He finished in 9th. That's clearly 3 spots better than 12th. That's where Hemrick generally resides. Just didn't pay off this time, but props to you, Rod. I'll give it to you. Next up for me, I had Riley Herbst. Oh, this was heartbreaking because I had Riley Herbst top 5, which cashed plus 350. Very nice. Also had him plus 700 for the top 3. He was there at the end in the top 3. And then with Kligerman ending up backwards again, thanks to Daniel Hemrick, he ends up falling back to 5th. So still cashes the top 5 for us, but the top 3 would have been real nice at 7-1. So close. Also, I had tossed out Jeffrey Earnhardt at plus 1,800. He got caught up pretty early in one of those wrecks. He ends up 34th. It just wasn't time for it to materialize. Again, this one didn't have, you ended up with 26 cars left running. So a little bit more of wiping some cars out in this one than in the truck race. But again, for some of those types of bets like Earnhardt, you're looking to have a little bit more cars wiped out by the end for something like that to cash. And he just unluckily happened to be the one that was wiped out. But Riley Herbst got the top 5 for us. Man, if they keep giving us Riley Herbst top 5s every week at plus money, I think we're just going to have to keep taking it, because that's 2 weeks in a row we've hit on it at a short flat track in Phoenix and a super speedway like Atlanta. So, now we go to a road course to look and see how he does on road courses. But Riley Herbst's been a solid guy for us to bet on week in and week out.
The 98 car has been very solid. And like you said, I think we're going to have to change our total stance on him and just sort of shift to let's figure out a way to actually bet on him and find good betting angles. Speaking of good betting angles, at Brett Moffitt over Kaz Gralla at -130. And listen, in and of its own right, this one would have cashed anyways because Brett Moffitt was actually a really damn good car. He finished in 6th place on the day. Kaz Gralla would not have done that even if he was still in the race. He did get crashed out after 11 laps, so this one cashed ridiculously early.
Always nice when you cash one 11 laps into the race.
Yeah, you gotta love when that happens. And this one was actually -130. So obviously Moffitt's side of it was a little more juice, but I told you that this was going to end up cashing anyways. And look, for Brett Moffitt's sake, man, he almost had himself a top 5 day, which was fantastic. A top 10 day is already great, but like a top 5 day for him would have been icing on the cake. And I mean, who knows, a little more chaos and he might have actually won the race, which would have been crazy, but I'll definitely take the head-to-head side of it. And again, when you're lap 12 and you don't got to worry about it anymore, that's one to put in the bank almost immediately. But I was very impressed with Moffitt and the way Moffitt looked. And in fact, I love what can't remember exactly who it was, jumped into the Discord the morning of and was like, hey man, everybody's sleeping on Moffitt. And we're like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Everybody's sleeping on Moffitt. So I'm glad there's other smart bettors out there in the Discord that are having that conversation as well.
Yeah, and we recorded Xfinity early too. That was on Tuesday night. We didn't even realize at that point that he was going to be in a Stewart-Haas prepared car. So then obviously look even smarter going into the weekend there. And yeah, he had a fast one and he took full advantage of it. Again, of the 3 Stewart-Haas cars, Cole Custer, nowhere to be found yet again. Boy, just Cole Custer, you've disappointed me a lot this year. But I had Parker Kligerman to win Group D at +360, and I also had him in the top 5 +400. He cashed both of these. I don't even know if I have the group written down. I don't know, but I do know he did win this group. I know Riley Herbst was the closest one when I looked it up, and obviously Herbst 1 spot behind him in 5th. Kligerman was looking backwards at Herbst as he crossed the line, but good enough to win Group D and get that +360. And then the top 5 held on to that. Luckily, was so hopeful for that win and cashing that ticket there, but at least cashed both of those again. I mean, the 22-1 was nice in the Cup Series, obviously, but in this one, I mean, you had a +380 on the Truex one, then you got +350 on the Herbst, you got +360 on Kligerman, +400 on Kligerman here, and then obviously we'll talk about Austin Hill, the winner that you had as well. But a lot of good plus money bets that we hit in this Xfinity Series race, and it didn't work out in the truck race, and that happens. We had some similar bets there, but that's why we just toss out these plus money bets on these super speedways, because there are days if things go correctly, like they did here, you can cash a bunch of these and have this is a pretty solid day with all of these generous plus money bets that we hit.
Yeah, and again, it's just a matter of we tell you all the time about super speedway racing and super speedway betting, and I mean other shows will piggyback on that as well. I don't think you'll find a show that won't warn you that anything can and will happen on super speedways. So that's why if you get mad at us for a bad truck weekend, stick around for the Xfinity, we'll bounce you right back. Stick around for the Cup, we'll bounce you right back. It's just, if whatever, I just know that we try our best to give you the well thought out ones, even if I spend half the time contradicting myself while I'm giving you my pick. I'm trying to give you both sides of the story, man. If you just want me to spew out picks, I'll spew out picks. Would you rather me talk through the process? I'm giving you all the stats that you need to know to make an informed decision to whether you want to tail me or not. If you think I'm contradicting myself in making a pick, then that means that I'm obviously giving thought to the other side as well, and not just saying cherry picking the stats that I want to back up my pick and not giving you both sides of the story.
Yeah, we're back to Mr. Airport Departure's comments, but yes, you're very transparent with it, because you'll go back and you'll say, look, he hasn't done well this many times, but there's been this side of things where he has done well or he's done this, and that's what you're hoping on. But you're making sure that everybody knows as you make this pick, hey, some of these results aren't, and I maybe don't go as in depth, but sometimes I'll be like, I'm not going to talk about his Talladega finishes because they're not so great, but look what he's done at Daytona, and I give you that side of it. So it's being transparent and saying, hey, look, this isn't a perfect system. It's not Kevin Harvick's finished here 20 times in a row in the top 10. He's had, this many top 10s and this many times he didn't finish in the top 10, and you do it that way. And so, if people don't like information and they don't like winning picks, then we're just not for them, Rob.
And I can't help that, and that's fine. Those of you that are around, you know the deal. So, all right. My one that didn't hit was Sammy Smith over Josh Berry.
Literally, your only bet that did not hit
was Sammy Smith over Josh Berry. Josh Berry actually did finish 7th in this race. Sammy Smith, for his part, was necessary. I mean, he started from the pole, but right after that, he just sort of dropped back. And this wasn't necessarily Sammy Smith's type of race. I don't think he felt comfortable. I don't think he felt good for most of it, and just finished 17th. And it wasn't. I mean, Josh Berry didn't have himself the most greatest of all days. Anyways.
Josh Berry was spun around twice.
Yeah.
He also wrecked again, JRM. JRM, I think, is the Ferrari of the Xfinity Series.
We'll talk about that
because Berry wrecked Allgaier again.
Yeah.
Like, what, he had a hell of a day. For him to end up coming back and finishing 7th was props to him, because this one wasn't looking great for the Berry side of things for a while.
Well, and that's the thing. I'm seeing no love for teammates, man. No absolute love for teammates. It's just ridiculous. One comment here real quick. Thank you very much. You guys do a hell of a job. Appreciate all the in-depth content. Could charge for the info alone. Someone is willing to lose their mortgage payment on a super speedway. They're not very smart. Let's keep cashing. Thank you very much.
They're an idiot, Rod. You don't have to sugarcoat it.
I don't know, man. I'm a kid glove kind of guy.
I mean, again, this is gambling, right? And you shouldn't be placing bets on things you can't afford. If it is, if that's the money you would use to pay your mortgage, don't place that bet. If you can't afford to not win these bets, then don't do it. And whatever, if you don't like the way we give out our picks, or you don't like to hit 22-1 winners or 40-1 winners or plus 360 winners or some minus 110 matchups, then go pay somebody to give you the same picks for charging. I don't know, whatever. Anyways. Next up for me, man, this one was looking good for a while. I had doubled up on Ryan Sieg, top 5 at plus 700, top 3 at plus 1700. We already talked about him. I mean, he was hanging around all day long. He was 8th in stage 1. 6th in stage 2, was in there, and then just fell out 11th at the end there, but he was hanging in. And again, I felt like plus 700 for this, the top 5 even, and then to get 1700 for the top 3. This was a good bet, even though it didn't cash, with Sieg ending up with a pretty good day.
Yeah, like we talked about earlier, it was just, Sieg being Sieg, and he was being talked about a lot on the broadcast, and we said it again. There's a lot of people to be talked about on the broadcast. Usually means they're doing well, so you definitely want to take that for it. So I like that. I want to answer this question real quick before we get to my next bet, and that's Derek asking if there's anything we can learn from today and apply going forward. I think really the biggest lesson that I took away from this weekend, especially in betting like trucks and Xfinity, is that you really do need to figure out ways to balance your bets, because I mean, even more than I think normal speedway racing, because this is not a speedway. It's a super speedway mixed in with a speedway mixed in with what did Michael Waltrip call it to make me uncomfortable? The love child is what he called it. Made the whole booth uncomfortable.
Yes. He did. Yes.
Yeah. But you have to find a way to mitigate loss, right? And hedge in any way that you can see possible. And my next bet, Derek, it probably leads exactly like that. My next bet was a pretty decent hedge against a lot of things that could have gone wrong. And that was the winning car number was an odd number, right? This was only a plus 105 bet. It wasn't going to save your day, but if you would have done the right amount of units on it and figured out a math to make this sort of work for you, then it would have definitely been in your favor, because the winning car was odd. And in fact, if you look through the top finishers, Austin Hill, 21, Daniel Hemrick, 11, Ryan Truex, 19. All 3 of those cars were odd numbered cars. All 3 of them had an opportunity at the end to actually win. I know Kligerman, Herbst, both even, but Brett Moffitt was an odd. Sam Mayer was an odd. So most of the cars in the top 10 were all odd. So, it's just a matter of you figuring out a way, especially like we talked about in the F1 podcast, right? The field was the hedge. The field was the hedge. The field hit. So like, it's just a matter of being able to figure out which bets can cover and which bets are the right bets to make to cover. What's up, Rory Picks?
Yes. Hey, Rory. So yeah, right after Derek's question there, Kelly put in hashtag Fade Larson on super speedways. That is, and then yes, Rory, and then Derek says there he is. Thanks for waking up, Rory. Yes, thanks for waking up from your Busch Light coma, I'm sure, and joining us. But yeah, I do think that going forward to Atlanta in the summertime, maybe we need to look at it as a super speedway still, because that's what it is, and all 3 races proved that. But there may be a lesser degree of just anyone can get up there and win it, like at a Daytona. And it might be more of you look at like a Joey Logano was the fastest car all day. The best car was able to keep it up front. I don't know, because it was never guaranteed he was going to win, and he didn't even take the lead back until 1 lap to go. But it was harder to make passes, but you still had the big ones that create all the chaos too. So I don't know, man. I don't know how much different you're going to treat it. And I don't know. Again, like we saw the Ford Speed this weekend, but I don't think that translates going forward. When we get back to a quote unquote regular track, like I still think Chevy's going to have the advantage on regular ovals. So I'm still trying to figure out exactly what we've learned to take forward from this, but there's not many places you can take this and apply it to anyways. It might really be, you can only apply it to the second time we come around to Atlanta, which will be helpful when we get there, but it's not anything you learned here you're going to really apply to like a Kansas or any other intermediate track coming up.
No. Yeah, and that's it really too. This is all, I think, Atlanta specific. I don't think we've learned that Joey Logano is going to light the world on fire for the rest of the day. Because again, even I don't even think he really thought that he was going to end up winning this race. It just happened that way. So,
right.
All right. Speaking of winning this race, let's break down the winners.
Again, I felt like these were all really good picks. Justin Haley, again, just didn't really show up on the super speedway. I'm gonna have to stop betting him on super speedways. I guess he wasn't really involved in either race, the Xfinity race or the Cup Series race. I had him at plus 800. I felt like the odds were good there. And Rod beat me to the Austin Hill pick as well. But Riley Herbst 25-1, Parker Kligerman 30-1, Ryan Sieg 60-1. Kligerman was right there. If it wouldn't have been for Hemrick, I really think that would have been a photo finish at least. And Kligerman maybe would have gotten him. And Herbst was up there all day long, got the top 5 finish. And Sieg, we saw up there for a long time as well. Again, fell back to and ends up finishing 11th, but he was in the mix throughout the day. One more wreck maybe up front, one more restart, he gets up there. So I felt like this was a pretty solid card. Not so much Haley at the top of my card, but the other 3 guys all had a legit shot all the way until the very, very end to win this race. So close to having some really big hits this weekend. Again, just man, snake bitten on these winners, Rod, and it's gonna come around eventually here, and we're gonna get off of that. But Keselowski today in the Cup race, 20-1 was right there. Kligerman at the 30-1 right there on Saturday. So we're almost there.
Well, to your credit, you did say that I beat you to Austin Hill, which actually did come true. Plus 450 for Austin Hill. And he had a day to get himself back up there again. It wasn't as if he was up there dominating the entire day. He was up there dominating most of the race, 103 laps, but he had to fight his way back a couple of times to get back up there. So, like I said, it wasn't as if it was an easy day for Hill. And in fact, he only finished first in stage 1. He led all those laps in stage 1. In stage 2, he wasn't even in the top 10, or he was 8th in the top, or in stage 2. So he wasn't even in first place in that one, but he had to fight his way to get back up there too. Pit strategies, all the nonsense that was going on, shuffled him around. But when he got his way back up there, he got his way back up there. So
car's on steroids, Roy says.
The car's on steroids, which,
yeah, potentially. Austin Hill, he's going to be somebody you got to take seriously going forward. The days of the 20-1 hitting that and almost hitting it 2 weeks in a row with Phoenix, where he looked solid as well. Those days might be behind us at this point, Rod.
Yep, I think those odds are going to continue to get Kyle Larson-esque as we get deeper into the season. And then, of course, I had Ryan Truex at 14-1.
Another really good pick. Yeah.
Finished third. We had that whole thing circled, man. There was a lot of opportunities for any one of those guys.
I mean, yeah, that's 5 different winners we gave out, and not just the 5 favorites. You don't look at it that like it was up to 60-1, 30-1, 5 different winners, and they all finished in the top 11. So that's how good we were. We really hit everybody in this Xfinity race to do well, and Austin Hill ends up kind of being the chalk at the top, but plus 450 is still a solid day. And if you bet on all these, it at least helps you break even from them. So yeah, solid day. Also want to give out a shout out to Josh Williams. Pulled a boss move. NASCAR told him to park the car. He did what they told him, Rod. He parked it. He's going to be on Door Bumper Clear tomorrow over on that show. That's going to be pretty fun. I can't wait to hear that. I hope he prints T-shirts with him holding up the heart symbol there. Might end up seeing that on this show later on if he does, because that was and you can't do that. You can't. And he's likely going to be suspended. He's going to be fined. Denny Hamlin did say he would pay his fine. So Hamlin really making it hard to hate him anymore. Denny Hamlin becomes more lovable every week, it seems like. But yeah, you can't do that. But it was hilarious, and it might end up working out good for him. I think he gained a lot of fans. I became a fan, and people are talking about him. People are buying his merch. They said that he said his store sales are like through the roof right now. So shout out to him. It was a fun little story. I'm sure he'll be suspended, but it was great to watch anyways.
Hey, there's nothing NASCAR fans love more than a lovable rebel. That was what the whole sport was founded on. It was what the entire premise of NASCAR was pushing the limits and breaking the laws. And that's exactly what he did. And then some. Man, I could not believe what I saw. It totally pulled a Ricky Bobby move right there, and was just like, I'm walking through. I'm just walking down the track. It was so crazy. I loved it, every second of it. Yeah, that's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun to see what happens. I'm gonna listen to that episode for sure.
That'll be a fun one.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of fun episodes, Cody, we had a great one today. Thank you guys for hanging out. He wouldn't go that far, but
Rory's not buying the merch.
He's not buying his merch. He's gonna make his own of him walking around giving the peace sign to everybody out there. I'd buy that, Rory. Yeah. I'd buy that. But yeah, so yeah, we had a fantastic episode. Again, a rough weekend, but we salvaged some spots, hit a couple big ones. As always, we're thankful to you for sticking around and for hanging with us, especially on these live shows. It's so much fun. Plus, being able to go after it right after we watch the race is always fun, because then it's fresh in our minds and we get to all just sort of commiserate together. And Searching for Profit says he needs one of those hats, Cody.
Corey LaJoie's, just go to his store. That's where I got it from. It brought me good luck. The Corey LaJoie picture, it's going to go right over here. I'm going to keep it over here, and it will return for the Talladega race. So make sure as soon as you see those odds drop for Talladega, if you we don't generally see, odds available in advance, but if you're at a place that has them, go ahead and get those LaJoie tickets in at Talladega, because we're betting on them again there.
Betting on everybody. JDK says, thanks, fellas. Hey, we do it for you guys. That's the long and the short of it. We do it all for you guys. This is all fun for us, but we're glad that we get to have fun with you. So, all right, Cody, well, as we wrap things up, why don't you let everybody know where they can find you on social media?
Yep. Find me on Twitter at Husker_Zeeb. You can find all my work there. Make sure you check out the F1 Gambling Podcast. Again, Rod gave out a couple of good bangers over there. Hit, what was the Checo was plus 650, I think, to win. You had a plus 250, a couple other good ones on there. So, yeah, killing it everywhere.
Almost had a podium that was not a podium that was a podium. So
it was, then it wasn't, then it was again. Who knows? Yeah. It might have changed since we've been on air here.
I think we're going to do the F1 Gambling Podcast tomorrow, so make sure you check the feed for that and do the recap there. You'll hear more about that. Follow me on Twitter at RJ Villagomez. Link in the bio to everything I got going on, whether it is here, whether it is in between media, the back road, always every other Thursday for me. Check it out. Go check out back episodes if you just want to see me more, which my wife doesn't even want to do that, so it's all good. All right. We'll see you again for the next betting episode that we got coming out later on the week. Check your feed. Thanks for joining us on YouTube. We love you.
All 3 series in action again at COTA, so it'll be a good one.
Let's go racing and let it ride.